Thank you, Kate, and it's great to be here, and thank you for the opportunity. And so I am stepping in at the last minute, but I just want to say I'm coming here, on behalf of many of my colleagues around the world who I work with in Tearfund, because what I want to be able to share is some of the pragmatic and practical things that we have been doing over these past 10 years to really think about that shifting of the power of our data, of what it means to measure transformational change. So as I say, I'm here on behalf of them. Many of them take the credit for a lot of what I'm going to share. And also within that, a lot of it is about our partners that we work with. So Tearfund is an organisation that has worked with partners since its inception over 54 years ago. It's very much part of our DNA. We're very much led by the partner agenda, led by the needs of communities. And so as we entered into this journey, particularly over these past 10 years, of thinking about how do we measure change, it was really important that we built in that ethic, that kind of framework, and that foundation of who we are as an organisation, how we work. Tearfund is quite an influencing organisation. We work through more influencing type of initiatives, mobilisation of churches and communities around the world. We're a knowledge broker, catalysing and facilitating others, often a critical friend, walking alongside with partners, walking alongside movements, leading, participating in those different movements. So the way in which we work, we do projects, but we also do more sort of systemic kind of process orientated work. So when I stepped into this role 11 years ago, there was this challenge of how do we collectively measure this? And I remember really everyone coming to me saying, oh, you've arrived and you're going to help us measure this impact, to which it was, no, this is our agenda. We're working on this together. And over these years, just really exploring together some of the questions that have been coming up through our conversations with partners, questions that we see even in communities themselves, those being around, what does it really mean to measure transformational change? What does whole life change look like? What does it mean to flourish and thrive in different contexts? And how do we know that the initiatives, the projects, the work that we are doing as a partner or as Tearfund or collectively is actually leading to that transformational change and poverty reduction? So this started us on a journey to create what we've called the Light Wheel, which is a framework which we've created to look at holistic change. And this has been such an exciting journey. And we now have that Light Wheel framework and set of tools which has been used across 20 different countries in so many different and exciting ways. And I just really wanted to highlight three kind of areas from that, which I think pick up on some of the points that Frank and Sophie and Alison alluded to. And really want to focus in on openness, ownership, and optimism. So the first one around openness. So in this journey of really understanding what does change look like, it has been an innovative co-design space over these 10 years. So what has that looked like? Well, we, a collective group of people within Tearfund, which included people from the UK and also from outside of the UK, came together and really looked at different evidence. We ideated together, we looked at external evidence, looking at well-being, looking at some of the work coming out of the University of Bath on pathways out of poverty, looking at some of the evidence around well-being. And what we started to unpack that. We looked at our own internal learning, we had conversations with partners, we drew on our evaluations, we drew on the conversations we were in. And so we started to co-design the framework, the Light Wheel. We called it the Light Wheel, and it stands for Learning Impact Guide for Holistic Transformation. We don't tend to use that long name, but we very much see it as a way of shining light into the areas of work that we're doing. Communities themselves see it as a way to shine the light into the areas that are working well, the areas that are not working so well. We took the co-design of this into different contexts. We had colleagues and partners in India working with us on this, colleagues and partners in Myanmar, in Africa, in Latin America, helping us to trial and test this together. So it's really been a really open space and a really exciting space for us to build this together. And as part of our own learning, we have just commissioned a consultant to work with us to look at how it's been implemented and how it's been used. And that is really what she's come out with and said, this real openness to work together. this ability to draw different perspectives into the design of how we're going to measure what we're measuring, what changes, what changes are important to who, and whose data is this. So it's been really exciting. And I think just linked with that is the whole issue of ownership. So we've really seen this ownership across the organisation, across our partners, and with communities as well. And I just wanted to share some feedback from the consultant. And she said, there is real local ownership over the process of data collection, the commitment to improve the process, and the local use of data. So let me just give you an example of what that might look like. We have an example from Bangladesh, where the light wheel has been used in order to get that ownership. The light wheel has been translated into local languages, and so the local churches, who we very much work with, are eager to get hold of that data. So we are really seeing communities wanting that data. We've also seen where that data has started to inform conversations that communities are having with local authorities. So in Tanzania, for example, one community used the data to be able to advocate for new infrastructure from the local government. So it's really owned, it's really well used, there's a real hunger for the data, and that's what the consultant said. She's never seen a sort of a way and approach of getting local-led data in a way that people are actually proud of the data. That's what she said, people are proud of the data. And so one of the things that we are working on is how do we support and skill up people for doing their own data analysis. So we have a household survey that sits behind the tool, the framework, and the many other tools. But the household survey is one way which we can collect maybe more robust data. And we have data out there, there's data in communities. And one of our challenges as an organisation is to understand how can we get some access to that data to further learn with the communities and with the churches and partners that we work with. So I guess one of the third areas which I'm really seeing is optimism. So we've heard various issues and challenges being presented today, but I think what we've really seen over these past 10 years is a real optimism. There is this real desire to do things differently. And I think because we've all stepped into this, our partners, our churches, ourselves, we've stepped into this in a different way. We've used this time to learn and grow together. We've looked at ways of measuring, we've looked at ways of understanding what change means in these different contexts. I think there's an optimism. I think, the very fact that we are seeing people proud of the data, the very fact that communities, you can go into a community around the world and you can see an image of the light wheel, so a spider diagram which helps to map the journey of change. You can go into different communities around the world and you can see communities engaged in that and often come in and say, look what we have done. And they're not saying, look what Tearfund has done, but they're saying, look what we have done. And this is for us a really, really exciting space. So we have lots of work going on around this area. There's a lot more detail that I could share with you, but I just really wanted to share those 3 points really around openness, ownership, and optimism to set the scene for today.